Okay, cool. So this is Simon with ToughTrader.com and Trade Perform Coaching. Doing a group coaching session. We're just discussing what preceded the trend day up for two reasons. A, they can be very frustrating to begin with. They can be very profitable if you get them right. They can be very damaging if you get them wrong, meaning you're fading them, right? So what I want to do is both look at the price action that preceded this and what set this up, and how you could have told we were in a trend day up relatively early, which we did. I thought we did a good job of that, and what the price action looked like going into it, particularly from either a swing trading setup or either from swing trading setup or at least an idea that we were going to really make some kind of push, right? So we're going to look at it from a value standpoint. We're going to look at it from a volume profile standpoint, and then we're just going to look at it from 1 hour time frame down to 15 minutes time frame, and I'm going to try to get all that done in less than let's call it 25 minutes. Okay. Before I get started, I need to throw up this quick disclaimer, so I will find it, post it. This is for educational purposes only. Past performance is not indicative of future results. You can lose a lot of money trading futures. Make sure you have a good trade plan, right? Make sure you have a good trade plan and a good risk plan. I'm going to say it again, and I said it this morning. If you are taking positions on both ES and NQ, you are essentially taking the same position, right? You are double loaded on the same position, right? You're just managing it in two different markets because they pretty much move. Recently they haven't, but often they move in lockstep, right? So that's the first thing I wanted to say. So let's look at it from a big picture to start with. And this is off the other computer. I want to do it without the zones and so we can see what's going on, right? So the first thing is you'll see that this is a 1 hour time frame, or at least I'm about to bump it to a 1 hour time frame, right? Let's erase all these lines, clean the chart. Right. And so the first thing you'll notice is when you look at a 1 hour time frame, right, there was never any damage. The first thing that you would have wanted to write down is there was never any damage relative to what happened to the market, right? If we measure from the gap from the beginning of this rally back in October, excuse me, we take this and we draw 50-60 up, right? All we did was we came back in yesterday morning to the 50 retrace, right? If you keep it simple, we came into the 50 retrace at 62.38 1/4. Anyone can do that analysis, right? And what's our rule of thumb when we're rallying, right? We know that a market, any rally, this rally right here is not in trouble, right, until we get behind the 62 retrace. So in your notes, what you'd want to see is not only a close behind 62.12, but you'd actually want an impulse move behind 62.12 or a solid close on the low behind 62.12 to let you know, hey, there's actually a problem here with this particular trade, and that we may actually come down now and either test the top of the open gap or fill the gap. So the first thing is we never got behind the 50 retrace, right? So I'm going to try to focus more and more on ES and NQ. The Russells, I'm just going to simply post those charts. But again, I want to focus more and more on ES and NQ so that we can list out what the key details are day by day and approach it more calmly. So this is the 50 retrace, right? Never got penetrated. If we then look at the volume profile that was drawn up, right? And this is coming into, so this is prior to yesterday. This was the close into Monday, right? You'll see all the volume was above, right? We were very poorly auctioned. We did cover this, right? And that we had a second area, a second distribution that effectively acted as support, right? We had a low volume node that held the first time in, right? And then we had the second distribution of this double distribution in this area. And we knew coming into today, finally, that was our overhead resistance. And I said this morning, and this is NQ, I'm going to do the same thing for ES in a minute, that we had to get above 63.19. As a matter of fact, my plan was from 63.11 to 63.19 was to fade in that area. And if we closed behind, which is what we did on this bar, I didn't wait quite for 40. I closed it out earlier. But if we closed behind, we actually had a pretty good indication that we would be able to run. Because why would we be able to run? Because there's simply no volume back here to stop us, right? So if you'll notice, right? Once we got underneath this volume build, look, I want y'all to see how volume is interacting, how volume builds are interacting with price to slow the price down. So we open up, we push into volume. Looks very similar to this, right? We push into volume. What had to happen here? We push in, we reject out, and we come back down. This time, the build was a little bit different, right? We opened up, we drove out, and then we closed above. Notice this time we could not close above that 63.1150, and we closed above 63.1150 this time. Now, that's a pretty subtle clue, and I might need to go back and look at my own trading rules to decide whether I want to close out a trade. I had reduced trade size here, so I had no problem taking the trade. It worked here, it worked here, it worked here. It simply failed here. So there was not a problem. I did not have a problem with the way that this trade ended up working out, and it told me immediately to cease and desist in terms of fighting the trade to the upside. Okay. So I know I have no resistance up here, so I know that it's easy to break out. That's why I was like, look, there's just no point in fighting this at this point. What do we need to break down? We've got to get below 62.91 at this point. And what would you expect? If you think through this slowly, right, mechanically, what would you expect? We impulse moved underneath the high volume node, right? We pushed up, we rejected, we pushed up, we rejected. We attempted to break out, right? We closed just above. We pushed underneath, backside tested, and finally rejected, and we came right to the next, the double distribution is what we ended up doing. It is exactly what we ended up doing. Not effectively, it's exactly what we did as we came to this double distribution, and now we've broken out. So I would expect, knowing how price works, that we're going to come back into the 63.18. If I was a swing trader, I'd want to be working in a long into this area, assuming we're going to backside test and push. How do I know what that looks like, right? Well, I can answer that question. See when I'm over here in this build, so we'll measure the same way from the gap away. So we'll play pretend for a moment. All right, we come back to this area. And I do from this swing low to this swing high, and then I'm going to build out the profile all the way through here, right? So I come up, and I come to my swing high. All my volume is on top. So see when I gap down and I push away, I can constantly use my volume that's built up here as my resistance point. That's a normal and decent trade, right? And what you'll see is as we push out more and more, right? See how the volume point of control shifts down now? So that draws it to this day's close, right? So when I'm on this day's close, follow my reasoning now. When I'm on this day's close right here and I gap up, I am now going to say, because all my volume build is here, that pushes down into this volume build from here to here, right? That is going to act as my support area for attempts to break out to the upside. Now, all I see at this point, I'm going to continue drawing this back. Let me push it out a little bit, so because it always looks good going backwards. You can see how the whole thing plays out. So that's all I see at this point is I've gapped up, right? Which was different than what we did today. Today we gapped in, drove through, and then closed above, right? On this day, I would say, hey, guys, we've gapped up. And I am going to assume at this point that my pushes back into this area are going to give me tradable rotations back out. So the first question I'm going to have, again, this is an hourly. I'm looking on an hourly, and I'm going to attempt to push over down all the way down to a 5-minute time frame and get my thinking aligned with the hourly and the 5 minutes, right? And I teach this when I'm coaching people individually, right? So notice as we push down into that volume area, right? First time towards that volume area, push back out, and I'm going to combine rotation size, 60-10 down to 59-60, 40 points of rotation into that volume area, right? Response. Come into the next little bit of that volume area. Response. I come to the next little bit of this volume area. Now note, right, these are 1 hour bars. This is some pretty vicious rip down here, right? You've gone from 59.68 all the way down to 59.32. Notice 30-point rotation, right? We start up here at 72. We take away 30. That puts me at 42. And the low ends up being 32. 30-point rotation pops me right back up to the upside, right? Now notice again, because my bottom of my support's all the way down here. I finally come, test one more time to the bottom. I've now completely checked up on this entire area from an hourly standpoint, right? I have an open gap sitting right here. And notice, right, this took place over a couple of days. Notice all this time, if guys were shorting this area for this open gap, notice how much pain they had to take in the U-turns. Also notice what's very, very interesting here is how the market took out each little level because it could only stretch so much energy to get in, right? But then we want to take our next step, right? We want to come back because as this is getting done, right, watch how the profile has evolved. I'm actually only going to do this on NQ because the ES will take me forever, and this is going longer than I thought it would. But it's very good information. It's very good knowledge to integrate, right? So we come back and we draw that same profile, right? We're sitting up here. So I'm going to come up. Now I'm going to come to this date just randomly, right? And now what I've noticed is, see all the volume, which you can tell from the time, the point of control has shifted up, right? So I know two things at this point. I know I have support underneath that has to get broken in order to re-auction this area, right? And now I know I have resistance above. So when I'm sitting now, when I shift back over here and I'm sitting over here, each time, notice, come in, push back to that point of control, reject. Come in, push back to that point of control, reject. Come in. This time, right, I'm all the way at the bottom of this area, right? So what's happening each time? As we're coming through here, in order to get up, since I'm not gapping above this volume, I'm having to fight through each time we're subsequently trapping new buyers, right? If you bought here thinking it was going up, you were happy for a short time, but then you were underwater. You're going to sell when it comes back up, right? If you bought here and then got trapped underwater, you're going to sell when it comes back up. Excuse me. Apologize. So each subsequent time, I'm getting trapped underneath again and again, right? As I push through, right? So now I have another day's information. So I close this day over here. So now I'm going to draw that profile out. Yeah, one more time. Let me bring it in a little bit closer. So this is the day we're closing out on. Now we're going to evolve that profile once more. So we're going to draw it. And you're going to see how it changes. Draw it to right here. So now you'll notice, now I have all of my overhead resistance sitting up above here at 59.90. And if I get underneath this, this now becomes my overhead resistance. And I know from this profile, right, that if we get underneath here, I expect the rotations to become wider and more violent. All right, I'm going to say that again. I expect the rotations to become wider and more violent. I don't expect that we just necessarily go straight through, right? So let's see if that holds true or not. We already know, for guys in the room, you already know what the pattern should be in a poorly auctioned area. So the first thing you'll notice is, look how big the bars are getting. As soon as we drop into this area, why? There's no one to defend here, right? Look over this whole period of time. Look where all the volume is. And anyone who bought up here is going, holy cow. What they were looking for was this, right? Pop up, sideways continuation. And they're thinking like, oh, we're all right. It's just a wide range, no problem. Oh, man, that shouldn't have happened, right? So watch how they treat this. And we're going to watch how they treat the breakout. So see how big? That's now the single biggest move, right, of all these days. Reschedule. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Microsoft. So now all these guys underneath here are going, holy cow. And they have no one, right? Everyone underneath here, no one did any serious buying underneath here, right? But remember, it's not straight down. So as we look at each bar, so that's 3 hours straight down. The only place we got anywhere similar to that was right in here. And even then, it wasn't 3 very big, large volume bars out of the open, right? We opened, we rolled down, and oh, I had one more piece to show you guys. So even in the room, you know the rule, right? Wait till we trade above our last seller. That works here, right? Our rule, wait till we get, and you want this to come in a series, right? So didn't apply here, but we want to wait till we get above our last seller, even on an hourly time frame, right? So watch how this comes through. continuing down, right? Now look, we gap up the next day. This is interesting, right? How's my profile changed? That's what I want to know. So I'm going to come back again, and I'm going to draw it right up till the close. All my volume is still above, but I've put in a tuffet of volume right here. It's more volume than I have anywhere else. So I'm going to assume now that this in general, right, let's just say this area in general is going to get defended. It's a wide area. It's not a specific area, right? It's 30 points of rotation, right? All I want to do as I'm learning the market, all I want to do is learn how the market responds to this, nothing else, right? I want to say it again. All I want to do is learn how the market responds to this, nothing else. So as I'm watching the market, we're pushing back into volume. So now we gapped up. We didn't gap above the prior day's range. This is my target above. If I have a target above, I want to get this retested, and I've got to get above this to break out. But that's where my point of control is still from this entire rotation up. This would be my extended upside target. If I'm an options trader, I am shooting for this on the reversal. I am shooting for 59.84. Okay, I'm going to continue to push that out, right? Notice we push back in. The open gap doesn't hold it. This is what holds it. See how we push right into the top of this volume build right here? That's what holds it. I'm going to slowly let it work. We gap up again, right? Following day, I don't close into value. So this goes back to the value conversations that we have every day. We don't close back into value, right? If we do not close back into value, this should push out. Why am I rejecting here, right? For the same reason I thought we'd reject this morning. What have we done? We've pushed right into the closest point of control, right? The closest point of control that we have above here, and we've rejected. This is still my longer term multi-day target, right? So I've come down. I've gotten above my last seller, right? I've come down. I've gotten above my last seller. This is my first 50, 60 back. All this is in an hourly. We translate it into intraday, right? So notice for a trader that didn't want to catch the falling knife, right? He could have either simply waited till we got here or waited till we got here and traded against the low and had a very nice risk parameter set up. He would have seen that volume got built over to the left, right? So you're thinking a little more strategically, a little bit bigger time frame, right? And on this free fall here, that trader might have said, hey, I want to see some volume build before I just try to catch this in a free fall. It might keep me from getting slaughtered on the way down when we have a huge move. This is a 60-point down move, right? So if you could read it intraday, great, no problem, thumbs up, right? But what you want to do as you progress as a trader is keep shifting those gears back and forth, long, short, like right now, right? Are we long or short? I'll go to that in a minute, but we haven't stopped one time into the upside yet, right? This rally is still intact. I don't want to fight, and I certainly don't want to start looking for reversals till things change. I'll cover this reversal in just a moment, okay? Now watch as we progress, but let's do something that we should be doing, right? Swing low all the way over to this day's close. Notice, this is still my target. We have still not shifted volume down. What does that tell you? Think about that. Two things that tells you. Everyone who bought up here has not panicked, right? If we've done all this volume, when we finally bottom out, right, the volume, if people are panicking, is going to be increasing on the way down. It's decreasing, right? You can see volume by price is decreasing through here. Most of the volume's gotten done up here, okay? We still need to hold this. This is filled out a little bit better. So now I know, see how I'm getting, I have now really kind of two distinct areas down here, right? This whole area now becomes support, right? Notice how we gap above. And what have we done again? Just like we did here, we peaked back into the volume over here. We're peaking back into volume back over here, and we're pushing out from volume over here, right? Volume holds the secrets to all of this. You want to learn how to become a master trader, understand how the market responds to where people got left behind, right? So as we push out a little bit further, notice we rejected the first time. Now we're clear above. Guess where we're likely to move? To this low volume node. That's going to be my next resistance point because I don't have a high volume node to worry about now. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to say 59.64 is my next resistance. 59.84 is my next target. 59.08, right? to 59.57 to 59.64. That's about a 60-point rotation. Most days, that's about as much as NQ is going to give me. I know today's different, but today's a special day, right? So what push? Notice we just missed that location. It missed by a hair, right? So almost to that 59.64, which is why you draw a zone. It actually came right off the very bottom of that build, right? And it rejects down. Now, when it rejects down, remember, I'm working off this large process here, right? Because I want to keep up with what's going on. So again, from here to here, right? And then when this day ends, I'm going to push it forward a little bit. So notice we reject out of the low volume node and we come all the way back. Notice what we come back to. See that low volume node right there that we rejected off of when we came to the upside, and then we gapped above it, right? We did not fill in this low volume node, right? Watch when I pull this in. Up to here, right? Doesn't count that last piece. It filled in part of it, but it left this low volume node right here. We come back, right? When we come back, we reject, right? We gap down. We come right back in that low volume node, and we don't bother testing the volume right here. See that? Now, what do I have above? As far as I'm concerned, I've tested this open gap. This leaves 59.84 to 59.98 above, right? And below, I have both this volume build and I have this volume build. And remember, I'm reading PA day by day. So now we're going to continue pushing it off to the right. What are we doing right there? Can anyone answer in the room? What is this? What are we doing right here? I know you guys know this. Randy? Ian? Anyone? Well, no, okay. To us, it would be chop. We're building volume, right? We're building volume. Watch when I pull. So see what the volume picture looks like right there? Watch when I pull this out. Okay, I'm going to pull it to right to here. See all that volume that just got built there? Okay, I now know all the volume's going off right here at the low. What does that tell me? Two things. Number one, when we're pushing down on the hourly, they're pushing really hard, and they're pushing really hard specifically right here. Here to here, we are pushing hard. We are printing a lot of volume there. Now think about it. If you print a lot of volume, right? If you print a lot of volume, sorry, I didn't have the chat opening. James, you got the answer correctly right as well. So if you expand a lot of energy trying to sell something, you throw a ton of volume at it, and you can't get below that point where you're throwing a lot of energy at it, right? Because they're trying to push down. Look at all those red bars, right? What do you think is going to happen? I would say if we can't get below that level, we're now going to extend up. Let's see what happens. And I do, by the way, I do it just like this when I'm practicing outside of trade time, right? Because I'm trying to see this in real time. Push, 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 push. Guess when you can't push, you've got to buy. Now, this has already been tested. So my assumption is my next stop is 59.84, right? Right to 59.84, right? Now, that was easy because we did it. We didn't have to read it in real time, right? But what is it going to take to break out now, right? So I expect rejection at 59.84. And I would say, hey, I'm comfortable shorting 59.84. And if I was a swing trader, all the way up to 60.20. So let's see what happens to me. I'm going to put a short on here, right? I'm going to lean against my volume build. Before I do that, I want to see and make sure that this is still my big volume build. So I'm going to come back from the start all the way to this point. And I see that this is still my big volume build. We haven't shifted. So I know to break out, we've got to get above and close above this area, just like today, or we reject out of this area. Pushing forward. Notice that I came into 59.84, rejected, but did not get a strong rejection, right? Notice that I push along. Again, remember, this is my zone. Back, front, rejection, right? If we're not above, what my expectation would be here is that we're going to retest this 59.90. Tax bill vote is done in the House. Okay, great. I've got to say that's probably a sell the news response, right? So we're building energy in here. See how we keep going through? Now what's happened here to this point? If we bring this in, And if you don't find this fascinating, if this isn't interesting to you, right? So we see that it's going to break out, right? But to this point, right? So this is where we're at, right here, prior to the break. More volume gets built in, right? Now, what would change? Now, notice the subtlety of the break. We gap up. We test the top of the prior high, just barely. We open up, press in the second hour. These are 1 hour bars. In the second hour, we test in, and then we push out. And we start trending, and we start this whole process over again. But not only that, if we ever make it back to 59.94, guess what I want to be? I want to be a long side trader, right? So I don't think we do. Do we make it there? We never get back there. They come back. Again, they just test into the mid of the open gap and push. That's how you use volume to predict where the market's going to go. So if we come apply the same lessons to today, right? There we go. We knew that this was our point of control, right? From here to here. I was trying to fade within that, expecting rejection, right? We opened up right at 62.93. I short at 69.11. I don't get the rejection. Why is that important? Because I can surrender almost immediately and just let it go. Does that make sense? And that is how you use that volume build. And if we draw this volume build all the way out, right? We finish this all the way out. All my volume still on top, just like last time. We push back up into resistance, which worked perfectly. And why did this drive out? We have a driver in the form of the tax bill getting passed, right? What do you want to see? Because we have the lesson from last time. If it's really strong, we're not going to close back underneath that 63.45, right? It'll extend away from 63.45, maybe backside test it and continue. If we get back underneath 62.93, that's what you want to see in order to be bearish, really bearish, right? You want to get underneath, and then you know you have to clear 62.17. Otherwise, that's just a big consolidation area, and that whole area should act as support. Make sense, guys? Okay, that concludes the webinar. Guys in the room, I have a couple more pieces for you before I let you go for the day. There's obviously not a lot for us to do here, but I thought that was very informative. That's why I knew this was make or break this morning, and I understood exactly what I was basically playing to get a retest and a rejection out of this area. It just did not pan out, and there's nothing wrong with that. I pretty much closed it right at the beginning of this bar right here, and no significant pain suffered, no reason to fight, right? What do we have to do? We have to get underneath, not our last seller, our last buyer, right? So wherever our last buyer forms, that rule applies still in the hourly. Let me kill the broadcast.